All right, in this video, we're going to be looking at the large intestine and thus finishing our time in the digestive system. It's been a fun trip. All right, so a little bit about the large intestines, some divisions of the large intestines. First, you have the cecum, which is this first area of the large intestine. You can see here just kind of this enlarged portion. Right here is where it goes into the small intestine. So this ileocecal valve that empties from the small intestine into this cecum area. And then the second portion that we'll look at is called the appendix, which is kind of this little offshoot of the large intestine. A couple things about the appendix. It's basically a mass of lymphoid tissue. We talked a little bit about it in the lymphatic system. It's a bacteria storehouse, and so there's lots of bacteria in there. And the purpose really behind it is that bacteria is waiting for your, let's say you get sick or something happens and you lose most of your normal flora, the bacteria that are found in your gut, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Well, the appendix is there to kind of recolonize the gut. That bacteria storehouse allows you to recolonize and have a healthy gut. Well, the appendix can get blocked because it has a very small opening here. Well, it has a small opening for adults. Actually, when you're younger, the opening is a lot bigger, and so people who typically have have appendicitis are younger in age because this opening is bigger and it can get blocked by stuff that is in the large intestines, and then it can cause an infection and cause the appendix to get inflamed. And the problem with that is it can actually rupture and send those bacteria and all the other badness that's in your large intestines flying into the parts of your body that they shouldn't be, and so this can cause a problem. And so usually when you have appendicitis, they will take your appendix out, and probably someone listening to this video has had their appendix taken out. It's pretty common procedure. You'll have people who have appendicitis typically have pain in the lower right region of their body, and it can actually go toward like the navel, and so that whole region you can have pain, and it's usually a pretty intense pain, and so it's almost just a easy textbook case of appendicitis. They'll go in and have it removed, but it can also happen in adults. And the majority of the large intestine is known as the colon. This is the small intestine here, this portion here, and you can see here's the large intestine going around and emptying out. And then so this is the large intestine with the small intestine pulled away here. A couple things. The colon has several regions to it, and they kind of tell you what they are. Most of them do anyway. So here's your appendix and your cecum, and this is called the ascending colon. Let's see if we can go back here on this one. Actually, you can kind of see a better picture of this. There's the ascending colon, which that means it's going up, right? Travels up the right side of your body. There's the transverse colon, which goes across the body, right? Which makes pretty much sense. And there's the descending colon, which goes down. Pretty easy. Now, the only one that doesn't make sense here is called the sigmoid colon. And it's called that because it has this S shape to it. And this travels down through the pelvis, actually. So this goes through the hips into between the hip bones, and then you have the rectum here, and then you have the anal canal, which ends with the outer opening to the digestive system. And so let's talk a little bit about the bacterial flora. Bacterial flora, you have approximately 1,000 different types of bacteria in your colon, and they outnumber your own cells 10 to 1. And so you have a lot of bacteria in your colon, and they have a couple of functions, two main functions. Their function is fermentation. they ferment indigestible carbohydrates in the mucus, which is made by the protein mucin, if you remember that. And so they're digesting these things that are indigestible by the body. And this causes them to release irritating acids and keeps it all contained in the large intestine. And they also release a lot of gas when they do this, which we are familiar with. And they also, in the large intestine, there's also vitamin synthesis going on. And so B vitamins, some vitamin K are being synthesized in the large intestine by these bacteria, and these vitamins are used in other portions of the body, like vitamin K is used, for instance, by the liver, and the liver uses it to produce clotting factors. And so there's a lot of things that the large intestine does. Another important thing the large intestine does is kind of reabsorbing water out of the excess water, absorbing that out of the stuff that's in there, the leftover waste that's in there. And another important part of your bacterial flora is they keep pathogenic bacteria in check. And so you can see here on this picture, you have good bacteria in you. You have you can see the names up there. The one that in the middle is something that may surprise you, is E. coli. And you think, well, I thought E. coli was bad. Yes, cow E. coli is bad. And so when cow meat has been tainted with basically cow fecal matter, then we get cow E. coli, and it's not good for our own guts because it kills all of ours, and theirs takes over and makes us sick. It's kind of what food poisoning is, basically. And so then you can see the bad ones, and basically what's going on in your gut is the good ones outnumber the bad ones, and they're suppressing them just through natural selection. And so anytime you kill the good ones, there's a chance for the bad ones to kind of overtake them. And the immune system is also there to destroy those bacteria as well. And so any bacteria that breach the walls of the large intestine, the immune system will destroy. And so it's kind of a guarded relationship with the bacteria that are in us. And so as long as we are functioning and alive, those bacteria serve a purpose. But if you become unhealthy or your gut becomes unhealthy, the bacteria can actually work against you. So it's very important to keep your gut and the bacteria in there healthy. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that the kinds of bacteria we have in us, the proportion of them, can influence a lot of things, like body weight, susceptibility to a lot of diseases, like even diabetes, and like type 2 diabetes, or some liver diseases, and even stuff like mood. And so there's a lot of research going into this, and a lot of medicines are being developed for bacterial health. And you see the commercials and stuff for this, but there's some actual real medicines that are going to be developed for this. So a little bit about the digestive function of the large intestine. The waste in the large intestine can remain there for 12 to 24 hours. So if you eat something, it can take more than a day to get all the way through your system. There's no food breakdown happening in the large intestine except for what the bacteria are breaking down. And so you don't have any enzymes or anything that are produced. There's no more absorption of nutrients that are happening in here, but water is being taken out. The vitamins that are being made by the bacteria are being taken out. Other electrolytes like sodium and chlorine and other things are being reabsorbed so that your nervous system and different parts of the body can use those things. The main function of the large intestine is to propel that fecal matter out of the body, because you don't want it in you, because by this point it is toxic to the body because of all the things that have been done to it, and it's just kind of leftover remains. So a couple of imbalances here. One of these is the formation of diverticula. If you have a low fiber diet, what can happen is the colon will actually narrow. And so why does it narrow? Well, because fiber, what happens with fiber is if you eat it, it increases in size when water's added to it. It's like one of those toys, when you put it in water, it kind of blows up and there's a dinosaur or whatever. Well, it doesn't become a dinosaur. It just, gets bigger. And so when you eat fiber, it causes your large intestine to be full, which causes it to function normally. Well, if you don't eat a lot of fiber, if you eat a lot of processed foods, the reason they're called processed foods is because they've already been processed. Your digestive system does not have to work hard in order to digest them. And so the colon will actually narrow, and this increases the pressure on the walls, which can result in these little things called diverticula, which are these little bubbles that can form. All right. And when you have these diverticula that form, you have something called diverticulosis, which is just having them. Diverticulitis is when those outcroppings become inflamed, and that's not good. It's actually very painful. And if they rupture, then that fecal matter and whatever else is going on in your large intestines can leak into the peritoneal cavity. And this can be actually a life-threatening thing. And so people who have diverticulitis will sometimes have to have a section of their colon removed in order to deal with that. And so the way to avoid this is just to have a lot of fiber in your diet.